Broncos country, the wait is over. It's been a decade since you've hosted a playoff game, and finally it is upon us. It's playoff hosting game eve, not a real thing. Chris Harris and I are going to break it all down as Football Fridays starts now. Chris, I know it's bittersweet. The idea that the last home playoff game was you winning the AFC Championship and going to Super Bowl 50. But before we hop behind enemy lines, how excited do you think everybody is here in Broncos country? And I know you're going to try to get here. You couldn't, maybe for next weekend if they can win, but to have a home playoff game tomorrow.
Man, I can feel the buzz all the way down here in Texas. You know, I can tell it's you can feel it, man. It's going to be a huge game. A lot of people going to be there. Definitely going to be sold out. And you know, it's the best quarterback in the league right now that's still alive, going against one of the top defenses in the league. So it's going to be a great showing, man. I'm excited to watch it.
All right, let's do this. We're changing up our order of things. We're going to go behind enemy lines right now, though, and find out all we can about Josh Allen and those Buffalo Bills. Sal Capaccio is going to join us from WGR at Sal Sports on X, formerly Twitter, the sideline reporter of the Buffalo Bills. It is nice enough to join us before he's about to race to the team plane. So we don't want to be late getting to the plane. Let's start there, though, I think, Sal, with the quarterback. Best quarterback playing. I don't think there's any disputing that of the 8 quarterbacks left in the playoffs. But how do Bills fans feel about Josh and this team coming out here? And how healthy is Josh? Kind of a two-parter off the top.
Well, they always feel good about Josh Allen. Good to be with you guys. Brandon, Chris, appreciate you. You know, anytime you have number 17, you have a chance to win no matter what happens in a game. It's just as simple as that. He's a game changer. He's a cheat code at times. He's a difference maker. If he's on his game and playing the way that Josh Allen's capable of playing, the Bills are a very, very tough team to beat. And if he's off, especially this year, because the team around him hasn't been as good as the last several years, that's when the Bills have an opportunity to get beaten. So people always feel great about Josh. Now, he did get banged up in that last game. He's been dealing with a foot injury since the Cleveland game about last month. And then on top of that, last week you saw in Jacksonville, gets hit at the goal line on the knee. Looked like it's some sort of hyperextension. He had that evaluated, was evaluated for a head injury. He had knocked his hand on a helmet. I mean, the long list of injuries. I always say Josh Allen's, people call him Superman. I call him John Wayne plus Paul Bunyan plus Superman.
That's a good one. That's a good one, man. Going into this game, you know, your defense has been starting to get turnovers, right? Had some big turnovers versus the Jags. Very opportunistic defense. What do you think it's going to take for those guys to be able to slow down the Broncos offense this week?
Yeah, I think the Bills' defense last year was amazing. Last 2 years on taking the ball away. The first half of this year, they didn't do that very well. Mm-hmm. Last half of the year, they've been taking the ball away a lot more. But one of the reasons is they're just playing a lot more sound fundamentally and being in the right spots. You know, early in the season, there was a lot of maybe discombobulation at safety. Jordan Poyer, believe it or not, at his age, came in and really stabilized that position, but he's out for this game. But that really helped Cole Bishop come along. Cole Bishop's been one of the better players on the defensive side. He's helped out. I think Tre'Davious White is playing the best football of his career right now, believe it or not, coming back to Buffalo after leaving for a year, 2017. Sean McDermott's first ever pick when he came to Buffalo. But he's well over those the Achilles and knee injury from a couple of years ago. And I think to slow down the Broncos offense, to me, it's all about keeping Bo Nix in the pocket. The Broncos offense is at its best to me when he's outside, making plays out of structure, using his legs. And a lot like Josh Allen really early in his career. If you keep him in the pocket, you might have a little more of a chance. Completion percentage isn't great. He can make some throws, but once he gets out and once he's looking down the field and making plays athletically, that's when they're a little tougher to deal with.
Yeah, and Sal, the vulnerability for the Bills defense appears to be their run defense, especially on the edge. What do you chalk that up to? Because their personnel kind of the same as last year. I realize, I guess you sub our pal Vaughn, you know, one of Chris's closest teammates and friends, Vaughn, for Joey Bosa. But in general, you know, especially with Milano back healthy, getting Ed Oliver back. But why have they been susceptible to the run, and how concerned are they? Because Broncos are dead middle of the pack. They're 16th in rushing the ball, but maybe some of that has been Bo not running it as much as he did as a rookie.
So the Bills, the way they're structured is basically to defend the pass in 2025 in this era against Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and all those teams. But look what happens when they play teams that can run the ball. They're lighter and more athletic. They're not built to be really stout against the run. Now, they would like to be a lot better than against the run than they have been. Don't get me wrong. But they're a team. They're the number one pass defense in the NFL. And the reason is because they're built to stop the pass. They're not built to stop the run. They have faster, athletic, lighter players, smaller players on the defensive side. Yes, the edge can be a problem at times. And I'll be honest, last week it was a problem because Joey Bosa just didn't do his job. He's got to be better, and he knows that. The Bills could also be susceptible up the middle because, again, they're not the biggest team. Now, Ed Oliver, who is undersized, could come back for this game. We don't know about that, but that would be a huge boost for the Bills to help out not only in their run game, but also penetrating. But the Bills linebackers are sideline to sideline. They're generally good in coverage. Shaq Thompson's actually done a really nice job to help them since he's been inserted for an injured Terrell Bernard. Now they're both healthy, but Shaq Thompson's kind of taken that role in the middle because he helps them against the run. So to answer your question, Brandon, the reason is that basically the way that the roster is built is purposely built to be more effective against the pass, but they'd still like to be better against the run.
And, like you're saying, they're really a veteran defense, really. If you really look at it, they have a lot of vets and they have a couple of young guys. But really, if you look at the totality, it's a lot of older guys on this defense. Poyer, Tre'Davious, Bosa, Shaq Thompson.
Matt Milano.
Yeah, it's a really a veteran-led defense. But going to this game, I'm always, as a corner, I would always look at the receivers I got to get, right? And I play the slot, so Shakir would be my matchup.
Yeah.
So we got Jaquan, McMillan versus Shakir, man. How do you think that matchup is going to go?
It's interesting, right? Because let me divert for a second, Chris. What's funny is Patrick Surtain's amazing. We all know that. But his superpower is shutting down your number one. The Bills don't have a number one. So I'm not really sure if it matters necessarily to that. They can choose to have Patrick Surtain on somebody, but that could be Khalil Shakir sometimes. He can line up outside. He's in the slot. Let's remember the Bills lost 2 wide receivers to ACLs last week, Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers. And I'm here to tell you guys, it's actually going to hurt them more in the run game. Those guys are very good run blockers. They really rely on them. They're not separators. But what's going to happen is now the Bills are going to probably activate Curtis Samuel off IR, who had that touchdown last year in the playoff game. And they could very well elevate McCole Hardman, who you know well from the AFC West. He's been on the practice squad. So they're going to have a little infusion of speed as well to try and do a little better than they have been in the outside. They have not been very good in the outside at wide receiver. So it's kind of funny. Here in Buffalo, we're talking about as great as Patrick Surtain is, does it really matter that they have a shutdown number one because the Bills don't have anybody to shut down necessarily? So that matchup's going to be interesting. I think the Bills, the way to attack the Broncos in this game is what they did last year. Running backs out of the backfield, tight ends, slot receivers, because the Broncos are very good at rushing the passer. We know that. They're a very aggressive defense. They're also a man-to-man defense. And I think that allows for a little bit of the mesh concepts the Bills like to run sometimes, and also just maybe getting a guy on that second level of the defense. But look, they're so good in everything they do. I don't know if there's any one right answer there.
Well, and Sal, kind of staying there on that side of the ball, what concerns the Bills about this Broncos front, or I guess how concerned are they? Because I look at the blueprint the Texans laid out, and you know how it's always funny in sports, they've given the blueprint to the rest of the league, football, baseball. You have to have the personnel to be able to execute the blueprint some of the times. The Broncos do have the personnel to knock Josh around a little bit. So he was sacked 8 times, 2 turnovers. How worried are they that the Broncos can do something similar to what they saw with the Texans?
I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily worried about it. I know from a fan perspective, you look at that and say, okay, that's been an issue this year, all year. Josh was only sacked 14 times last year overall. That's it. Historically, records. It's been sacked 41 times this year. It's unbelievable. I think 14, but either way, he had a lot of low sacks last year. 41 times, I think, this year. Look, I think what the Houston Texans do is they just line up and beat you man to man. They say, our guy is better than your guy. Will Anderson Jr. is better than you. Danielle Hunter is better than you. The Broncos can do that, but I think they also rely a little bit on Vance Joseph magic, right? Which is putting their guys in spots and the scheme and all of that. And I think one of the things the Bills do pretty well is making sure they have 2 very good tackles who can get beaten one-on-one a little bit, but they're usually good at communicating. Of course, the crowd noise is going to have a little bit of issue with that. They have been susceptible to some simulated pressures this year and things like that. So sure, it is absolutely a concern. I think the Bills would want to get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands early in this game. Get the ball out of his hands early. And it's got to start with protection. Joe Brady's got to have a game plan that just starts with protection in this game for Josh Allen. That's what the Bills have to do.
Chris, you got anything else for Sal? He's got to get out the door.
Oh no, man. Thanks, man. I just, I'm scared. I'm worried about James Cook. Right. I just hope that we can the Broncos are able to stop him. If they can stop him, I think it should be an easy game to beat the Bills, but it's hard. It's hard to do. Cooks is number one rusher in the league right now, right? And then the Bills are another key stat. The Bills are top 5 in third down.
Yeah.
Right. That's huge to be able to have a run game because you keep your team on the field and you're able to continue to get more rushing attempts. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, man. Third down and Cook in that backfield, man.
Well, then the Bills played the number 1 rush defense in the NFL last year, and now they get the number 2 rush defense in the NFL this week. And the Jags did a good job of slowing down James Cook. He did not have a good game, but what happened was because the game was always within one score, the Bills never had to abandon the run game, right, Chris? And as long as you have that threat that you can still do it and stay two-dimensional, that's what really helps an offense. If the Bills fall behind in this game, they go one-dimensional, that's going to be a problem for Josh Allen against that front. If this game is close and they can still turn around and hand off to James Cook, he doesn't have to have 90, 100 yards. They just have to be able to run the ball and make sure that the Broncos know that they have the threat to run the ball.
I agree.
All right, Sal, we appreciate all the insight. Know you're now rushing to the team plane to catch a flight here to the Mile High City. It'll be great to see you, and I will catch you pregame tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, buddy. First trip since 2014. Couldn't go during the COVID year in 2020, so I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be good to see you at Sal Sports on social media. So give him a follow if you want info on all things Bills. That was our trip behind enemy lines. All right, Chris, now let's kind of work backwards. The Broncos have had a lot of time off. And so I was asked this question earlier today. I went over our friends from Fox 31 and Channel 2 were set up outside of Empower Field at Mile High. And I'll tell you what, it was a little chilly this morning. It was in the 20s, sunny, but in the shade. My hands were a little cold. But they asked me about the rest versus rust conversation. So I want to ask you, because you were the 1 seed in 2013, which obviously you then got hurt, but you had the bye. And again in 2015, how hard is it to balance that? And once the game was finally upon you, when you knew it was Chargers, knew it was the Steelers, how juiced do you get?
It's really just about getting rest, I never had an issue with the bye week. I loved it. I think the offense kind of started slow sometimes with it, but defensively and me, I always loved it. So I never had a really slow start with the bye in the playoffs. So Broncos being at home, I hadn't had a home game in 10 years. I expect a fast start, and I expect those guys to be rolling fast, ready to go. So after watching the football games last week, seeing how good they were, they got to be ready to go from the jump.
Well, and going back to James Cook real quick, and I know we're going to kind of break down the Bills as we go along.
Yeah.
Did you see something the Jags did? And is it as simple as with the Broncos? We know that they obviously were susceptible last year. Dre Greenlaw hadn't played a lot of football for the Broncos. He's played, I think, in 7 games. But you're getting Greenlaw back. You signed Hufanga. Adding those 2 pieces, can that be enough? And obviously just an even bigger emphasis on run defense. They've got one of the best run defenses in football. I know you're worried about James Cook, but I guess how good do you feel about the Broncos' ability to slow him down, unlike last year where he had 150 yards?
That's the only place where I'm pretty worried. He's tough to bring down. He's a dynamic runner. It's hard for him to be stopped 2 weeks in a row. It's a totally different front, right? When you play the Jags, they run more of a 4-3, more of a cover 3 base system. The Broncos, are 3-4, so it's a different type of front. So it's going to be interesting how he adjusts to that. But, James Cook has been hard to stop. They're going to run the football. That's what they do. They have to be able to make Josh Allen's job easier. And that's the only way to do it. To be able to run the football, convert third downs, and that's been their recipe all season.
And they've obviously had success at home. You talked about the Jags, what they were able to do against the Bills. The Jags are also the only team to come in here and beat the Broncos. Home field, Sean Payton's touched on this a little bit, Chris. Home field has been something that you certainly were able to use to your advantage through your first 5 years of your career. And I think even in 16 and 17 at times. And so Sean says there's about 4 places in the league. I feel like Buffalo is maybe on that list. Seattle definitely, but Denver, when it's rocking, I think Sean talked about, he kind of alluded to New Orleans, and you played there when it's loud in that place. But it maybe Arrowhead too. So there's probably 4 or 5 places, like Sean said, where it really does make a difference. How much of a difference will it be here at home? And we're going to hear from Court in just a second, but just how much more comfortable were you because of the home crowd, not the home environment in your home locker room and all that? Everybody has their own home locker room, but the environment itself.
Oh, it's going to be huge. Being able to have that crowd there behind you, the energy in the city is going to be there. You're going to see all the old vets, all the old Bronco guys there, champions there to root for them. It's just going to be a whole environment, man. And that right there just hypes you up, right? When I used to go to the games and see Rod right there hyping you up, things like that. That's just going to get those guys going, man. So I expect a high energy game. I expect some big hits from both sides. A real good game. I wish I could definitely make it. I'm mad I can't make it because I think it's going to be one of these type games that we'll be talking about for a while, man. And I don't think it'll be like last year's playoff, 31-7. I definitely don't see that happening at all.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And something the Broncos have started in recent years is the flag planting with the Broncos. Great. And I'm not sure who's coming, but talk about a guy that can get the crowd hyped up. Number 84 himself, Shannon Sharp, will be here planting the flag. You got to think that's going to get the crowd hyped. Speaking of the crowd and having that home field advantage, Cortland Sutton, in his first playoff game ever, was asked this week a couple times about the advantage of Empower Field at Mile High.
Yeah, man, shoes. I'm excited. I've been saying this since I got here that we need to get a home playoff game. Back in the city. The way that the fans have been showing up, Broncos country been bumping. I think what was it, last home game or maybe Packers, Jaguars? I don't know. I think it might have been Jaguars. Shoes, it was so loud. The ref was up there trying to call a foul or something, and nobody could hear what he was saying because the fans were not doing their thing. So, I can only imagine what it's going to be like. First home game in, since 2015, correct? And, it's well overdue, and, I'm excited to see Broncos country show up and show out.
Yeah, man, he's excited. And it's a good thing to see, man. Cortland being here from the hard days. And now getting to play his first home playoff game. I was spoiled, I guess, man. I came right there. We got the Steelers right out the gate. That was a crazy home game. Walk-off touchdown by DT. But for him to have his game is huge for him. Legacy-wise, him just being that guy, being there for so long. So I know the fans are going to be crazy, man. They've been waiting for this for a long time. And, man, y'all be careful out there in the tailgating area. Because I know it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna definitely be a party in Denver.
Yeah, it's funny. So every week I talk to Gary Bell from Bell and Pollock for one of our injury reports, and Gary's 80 years old. I'm not blowing him up. He does a weekly radio show on KOA at 7 a.m. He's taken this week off to get ready for that tailgate. And I think they open the gates at 8 or 9, but he's like, I don't even want to be bothered with the radio show. He's headed straight down to hit the tailgate, 2:30 kickoff. That the fans will be revved up in a fervor. And so how about this stat that I didn't know, going back to your mention of the Steelers, or fact, I guess it's not really a stat. The only quarterback in Broncos history to win a playoff game that was drafted by the franchise, Tim Tebow, in 2011, because Craig Morton, of course, started his career in Dallas. John Elway drafted by the Colts. Jake Plummer, of course, drafted by Arizona. And then we know Peyton Manning certainly drafted by the Colts as well. So pretty wild that Bo has a chance to do something that only Tim Tebow has done.
I think Bo can get it, man. It looks like Bo will have probably like all the records for the quarterback drafted to the Broncos, because John Elway's, like you said, he's excluded. Like he can't be in any of those records.
He might already have them. I think he's passed Tebow in just about everything other than playoff wins. Because
right. That's all he needs.
More yards. He may not have more rushing touchdowns yet. I guess we got to go look and see what Tim's rushing touchdowns were in 2011 because Bo has, I think, 8 or 9 in terms of regular season. But speaking of Bo, actually, before we get to Bo, I want to talk. I want you to hear from Sean because we saw with Mike Tomlin stepping away, and you and I haven't really talked about that, and we don't have a spot built into the show. So give me a quick thought about Tomlin, but that kind of set up, I think, the question to Sean. Because we expect Tomlin is going to take a year away at least. He's not jumping back in like John Harbaugh obviously did. What do you think when Mike T decided to walk away?
It was, you seen it coming, and they're calling for his name during the season, and when you be there 19 years, that's a long time, and he had a great career there, but the standard is very high in Pittsburgh, and not being able to get a playoff win, and being one and done for the past couple of years, that's not going to cut it up there. So I think it's great that he's going to be able to get a rest, be able to look at the landscape of the NFL, kind of reevaluate himself. And, but it's a lot of opportunities out there. I would be looking at Atlanta. That's a great spot. Baltimore, it's hard to not have like Lamar Jackson and not go look at that, if I'm a Mike Tomlin. So, it'll be interesting to see if he waits, but if that Baltimore one, I got to at least take a chance at it.
Well, I think the reason he's waiting is because he does want to just decompress. I've heard people that seem to be in the know on the national level saying that they expect him to go to TV, maybe Fox. And I think he's really following Sean's blueprint. Like he has been, he's a guy that's, from the Virginia area, played his college ball there. Coached in Minnesota, not great weather. Coached in Pittsburgh, not great weather. I think just like Sean went and lived in Manhattan Beach or Hermosa Beach or whatever, maybe he's going to rent Sean's house and go live out there by the beach for a year and just enjoy life away from football. I get it. When you've got a Ferrari sitting there like the Ravens, it's at least worth kicking the tires on. But a year from now, the Cowboys could be up, right? There's some other teams that also would be in that mix. Maybe if McDermott hangs on, but then in a year they decide, oh, you didn't get as far as you needed. Maybe you've got Josh Allen, who knows? But so Sean Payton did exactly that. He went to LA for a year. And so he was asked about just the juice of being back, on the sidelines. And Sean is good. Yesterday was one of those days where he didn't have to race to TV production meetings. And so, because sometimes he'll tell us, hey, he doesn't have a lot of time, because we know Sean can give us some stories. So yesterday you did 20-something minutes, and you ask a question, you don't know exactly where he's going to go. But this is his reaction when being asked about having the year off and then being back in it.
And I shared, it's funny you brought that up. Yesterday I shared it with the players, and I said, look, that year away, is a big transition. And we're all sold on what retirement's going to be, in the lake somewhere with a fishing pole, and some companies selling you that. And it's a little overrated that way relative to having a purpose and getting up. And so that year out, man, very, very little mattered, getting ready for the Sunday, where they're going to throw you a few easy questions and you're going to have a narrative about the game, and then you stay and then go home. But all the while, like, immediately you realize that racetrack is going. I've said this, you smell the gasoline, the lights are on, and you're like, man, there's nothing like that. Now, there's going to be a time where, and I said this to the players, there's going to be a time where all of us have to get off, but you know what? Not today. Not today. And so there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Right. It's funny that the coaches go through that same thing the players go through, right? Missing the game after 1 year, just that competitive flow, the juices, he's missed that. He's like, man, that was overrated. Just chilling by the water with fishing and not doing anything, not having a purpose on Sunday. Like, I just was, that was the way he felt. And we'll see, because Mike Tomlin is very competitive, right? How long? I give him a year tops, right? Yeah. A year tops. I even be surprised if he doesn't come back this season. But, listen to Sean Payton, and if he's taking that advice, right, You know, you're going to miss the competition. You're going to miss game planning. You're going to miss, being on those sides of the winds, blowing his, what does he do? Beat his chest and blowing that kiss, right? He's going to miss that competitive nature. So we'll see what happens, man. But great career to Mike Tomlin, and good luck for the rest of the way.
Yeah, and then as for Sean Payton, clearly, I mean, he always talks about being a teacher, but he was a quarterback in college, and obviously, lower levels of the pros, a little bit during a strike in the NFL. But this is all he knows for the better part of 40 years. He's 62 years old, and so you got to think that Mike T's like that. But it's a conversation that every player has, and it's probably why. And we know coaching staffs have expanded. But why so many guys, maybe of your generation or a little older, but guys you played with and against, have gotten into coaching, even when it hadn't necessarily been about money. I think about somebody like Wes Welker. Wes Welker doesn't need to work. He doesn't need to coach. Mike Vrabel doesn't need to coach. We could go down the list. But when you talk about just, somebody like Mike Adams, who you played with, he's coaching with the Giants, or, had been, yeah. that they just missed that competition and missed the locker room and that environment. Yeah.
I mean, definitely. To come back into the game, guys love the game. They want to be out there and help the next generation. So it's just whatever your calling is. I do it through 7-on-7 and developing these guys going to the NFL and college, just because that keeps me in the flow without having to go be a head coach and be gone 30 hours, 50 hours a week, So just being able to find ways to stay in the game for everybody, whatever level that is. You're always going to have that competitive nature. It's just kind of managing it. And people like me, high competitive, you got to stay in it. I got to be able to stay in it somehow. And I'm pretty sure Welker, he was like me. He's very competitive. He's still in the game. It's just kind of that. It's hard transitioning for especially those guys that are probably for a lot of all pros that sleep, study, and do everything football.
Yeah, final note on this, and we're getting back into the Broncos. I saw where Navarro Bowman, who was a linebackers coach with the Chargers, he's now stepping away after a year of it, because you're right. You say 50 hours, that's on the low side. You're talking closer to 100 in season, and he's got his son is a high-level high school basketball player that's going to go play D1 and then maybe make a jump to the pro. So he's stepping away from it. We've seen that too plenty, where some guys jump in a year or two and then they're like, this isn't for me. I think Brian Greasy, 2 years quarterback coaching after all those years of TV, 2 years with Kyle Shanahan and quarterback coaching, and now he's out of the biz. So I think that it's one of those where it's missed. It's not for everybody, but for some guys, it's kind of all they know. All right. Bo Nix, he's the son of a coach, grandson of a coach. And so strategy is a big part of everything in his life and competition. He was asked about the idea of maybe scoring too fast. And I think this relates almost exactly to how the Bills ended the game. I don't think it was teed up like that, but the Bills were trying to not leave any time on the clock, and then the Jags let them just score. So I want your reaction to this, but this is Bo being asked about the idea of scoring too quickly.
Not really, because we got our defense. So I think it's just, it's tough enough to score at any point in this league. So once you get the opportunity, you want to score. And, hopefully it matched up to where they don't have much time, or you get a good enough lead to where it doesn't really matter. But we feel good. Our defense has made stop after stop after, getting the lead. And they've done it once. They're going to do it again. And I think it's just complimentary football. They want to probably be out there on the field and want to seal the game. So it's our job to just give them a lead and let them go out there and do it.
Yeah. If you're Bo Nix, you should be very confident, right? Because you have one of the top defenses in the game. His thought process should just be score, right? Just score. It doesn't matter when we get it or if we have a little time left and we're trying to save it, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just try to go get the ball into the end zone as fast as he can. Why? Because he has a great defense. He has confidence in them. He relies on them. And so I think that was a great answer by him, trusting in those guys across the locker room. Them hearing that, that gives when I hear that if I heard that from Peyton Manning, oh man, I trust those guys back there if I go score, they're gonna lock it up and win the game. That right there helps the team, man. I'm pretty sure those guys are gonna hear that, and that just builds that confidence amongst the teammates.
Yeah, I think we saw it with the way they approached both the Chiefs and Chargers games where you didn't need a lot from the offense. And this is where I love Garrett Bowles, because nobody spills the beans better than GB. Earlier in the year, when we didn't know who the left guard would be, was it going to be Palcho? He was asked at his locker, as we chronicled, hey, you're gonna have a new left guard, and he just says, oh yeah, I can't wait, Palcho's gonna do great, when the coaches were doing all they could to not tell us. So then when asked about the game plan being vanilla, kind of some pushback against that. And then GB at his locker this week says, we had a vanilla game plan because he's just honest. And so you appreciate that. But when you have this defense, there's going to be very likely scenario. You said you don't think it's going to be a blowout. Neither do I. I'm going to give you two choices, because the Broncos have been in so many close games. That was kind of a theme Wednesday or Tuesday. I keep thinking of the days practice normally is. Tuesday, Bo was asked, Court was asked, Pat was asked, you're in all these close games. Why have you, thrived in that? Would you rather, if you're a Broncos fan and you're sitting there watching it at home, or you're one of the 76,000 in the stadium, do you want the Broncos to be up 2 or 3 late, relying on the defense? Or do you want Bo Nix in that offense, where they've shown so many times with plenty of time? I'm not talking 18 seconds. I'm saying 2-minute drill, minute and a half. Do you want the offense with the chance to go tie it, take the lead? Or do you want that defense out there against Josh Allen? Not against anybody, against Josh Allen this week. Which scenario would you prefer?
I would rather us be up and playing defense versus Josh Allen. I would trust that a lot more. Just seeing the consistency of seeing how those guys have been able to close games, Commanders game, all season, so, I'm a ride with the defense, man. You know how I do it. We closed a lot of the games, in my time. So I would definitely feel comfortable with Pat and Benito and all those guys being able to close it out.
Well, I go back to that AFC Championship game and Gronk turning into a damn transformer and almost closing the game out himself. And he might have got away with a push-off on you a little bit on a couple of those plays down the field. But then the 2-point conversion, you guys make the play, Roby snatches out of the air, and the rest is history. And that was relying on the defense, but y'all had the lead. Now, I guess the best way to pose that question may have been, score is tied. They can go down and go ahead with even a field goal, or the offense can go down to get a field goal. Because, if you have the lead, it's easy to say, hey, do you want to already have the lead? and rely on so that's maybe a bit slanted. But with this defense, I get it. All right, let's hear one more thing from Sean before we jump in the film room, because we've been talking about that run game. And Bills are 28th against the run. Some of that is they've had the lead in plenty of games and teams don't have to run against them. But he talked about how Joey Bosa isn't setting the edge. And you played with Joey Bosa, right? Would you accuse him of being a great run defender at that position's in some ways about willingness, right? In setting the edge?
I would say he's good. He's not bad, but he has to be disciplined and being able to do his role. Can Joey not be disciplined sometimes? Yes. He's like Vaughn. Right, one day he might do 8 of them right, but then that 9th one, he might, he never know what he's gonna do. Right, he might kill him, go inside, jump inside, or some of those guys are hard to make them do the same thing every time. Right, and Joey can be like that. Vaughn, of course, Myles Garrett, all these guys can be, they might do their own thing sometimes. TJ Watt, and it might look like they're making plays and doing it the right way, but they're not. They're just doing freakish things. So, with Bosa, with him, he can be up and down. I would run at him. I wouldn't fear it. And I do like the matchups. I do think Bowles is very comfortable with blocking him and McGlinchey. So I don't really feel the Bills D-line at all.
Yeah, and they are getting Ed Oliver back. That's got to help. He made a couple plays, obviously, in that playoff game. There's a reason he was a top 10 pick, and I'm pretty sure he's been a Pro Bowler. If not, he's certainly that level of talent. But so I asked Joe Lombardi about it on Wednesday. Again, I want to say Thursday, about knowing that they're vulnerable against the run, certainly statistically. And he gave kind of politically correct answer, but said, yeah, we have to establish a run. We want to establish a run in every game. But I think the biggest problem in the run game, honestly, at times has been Sean being his own worst enemy, because I think like Peyton Manning, especially when Peyton's in his prime, he's thinking, well, we can just get more yards by me throwing it. And Sean's like, I can scheme up all these plays to get the ball downfield. But Sean was asked specifically yesterday about staying committed to the run. What will it take to have success in the run game against a team that hasn't been great against the run?
I'll make a note on the sheet, run it. It's important. The thing that I have to continue to, that changes as you get older, is you still have to be quick. Like, play just ran, boom, next play. I said this, like, when I was younger, like, we'd run a reverse on the 8-yard line, and I think nothing of it. And as you get older, you think about all the ramifications and so I have to also remove that, It was said as you get older, maybe you don't drive in the rain at night. You begin to, I can't let that happen as a play caller. And sometimes that's something that I have to mentally make sure it's quick. It's quick and decisive, and it's daring at the right time. Not reckless, but those are things that I find that are challenges compared to when I was 33 in New York or, in my whatever. And part of that is being raised by a father who was in casualty claims and insurance, who, we had no trampolines, we had no swimming pools, we couldn't ride motorbikes. We knew where every sharp edge was, and it was like, and so, but anyway, I think that's the thing that that I've got to focus on.
Sean Payton, I don't know how y'all do it sometimes, I mean, he might be way over here, he might be over here. I love you, coach, man, but hey, sometimes, man, you probably one of the hardest coaches to react to, man. But it's just with him, just having that preparation, right? Coming in, doing his thing. I seen a stat that he always plays pretty well coming off a bye as a coach. He's done pretty well in the playoffs. So, when you have success like that, you kind of fall back to that. What did I do at those times to be able to have that success and try to bring that over here, that same level of, intensity and paying attention to details. So, Sean Payton, man, I don't know how you do it, BK, but I know he's going to have those boys ready to go.
Well, the one thing we get from Sean, or we get a few things, but he was asked about Garrett Bowles and what he remembers from the 2017 draft when he took Ramczyk. And he, of course, starts with, well, that's when I was about to take Patrick Mahomes. And we know that didn't work out. Then he talks about Marcus Williams. That meant we weren't going to get Kamara. Then they get Kamara. They get Trey Hendrickson. All of that to talk about Garrett Bowles. He's like, oh, but we liked Bowles. And so then Parker Gabriel came back with, okay, what about him making it in year 9? How often do you see that? And he talks about calling all the Pro Bowlers and calling all the All-Pros. And then about calling, so you have to take that journey. But we've covered so many different coaches, and that's the, both the good and bad thing about the ride the Broncos have been on, especially since Gary Kubiak stepped away. But they're all a little different, so they all approach press conferences differently. And for Sean, who is a storyteller, do we get the same stories over and over from time to time? Sure. We've heard over and over his dad. He never wanted to do what his dad did. Put a suit on, get on the train in the suburbs in Chicago, take the train into the city every day. I didn't know what he did until yesterday. Apparently he worked in insurance claims. And so that's why you don't want to drive in the rain at night and loss mitigation and all that. But I don't mind it, because I'm like, am I really in a hurry to then go talk to Troy Franklin in his locker, which I did. And I got 5 questions in 1 minute and 10 seconds right. Versus Sean giving us a 4-minute answer, 2-minute answer on how do you run the ball more, and you end up with driving in the rain. And it's not the level of the way Russ would do it, where Russ is like, hey, what do you think about Garrett Bowles? Oh, Garrett's great, but so's Ben Powers, so's Quinn Minor, so are my receivers. And we're like, okay, but we asked. So I don't mind it with Sean. But going back to what he said, he's going to run it. We remember seeing that against the Chargers last year on Amazon Prime, real big. Will he stay committed to running it?
Well, he has to. He has to make the job easier for Bo Nix. Coming in the playoffs, you cannot lean on a young quarterback the whole way. You got to be able to run the football. Harvey has to get going. McLaughlin has to get going. This is a huge game for the O-line to be able to create creases, keep Josh Allen off the field, right? Time of possession, turnover battle, right? Bo, when we can run the football, guys, hopefully we don't fumble, right? Keep that possession. Do good on third downs. That's the recipe to beat the Bills. You got to keep Josh Allen off the field.
Well, and we're talking about Joey Bosa in the run. I remember always hearing this from Big Al, who of course is with us here at Guerrilla Sports. Big Al and CJ was in the playoffs. That's when pass rushers turn into much better run defenders fundamentally because they can't make any more money in terms of their contract. They're 12 sacks, 14 sacks. That's it. So Benito, Joey Bosa, whomever it is. Do you see that being the case? And I'm going to flip it with Sean Payton, who wants to score 1 million points during the regular season and get Bo's numbers up versus winning a game 13 to 10, 11 to 10, that Sean will run the ball because it's about winning the game and not about style points, even more so than it is during the regular season.
Yeah, and the Broncos have been winning despite style points all season. So they're good at making the games ugly, but it's the key is just being able to, can you stop Cook, make this team one-dimensional? And then now, once you do that, now you can go pass rush. Now you can go get after the quarterback, Benito, and those guys, and John Franklin Myers. The D-line should be ready to go. They should be licking their chops, being able to contain this guy, and and being able to make this guy throw turnovers. Try to make Josh Allen get back to a turnover king. And the first thing you can do is by stopping the run, making this team one-dimensional.
All right, as we do every single week, even though there wasn't a game last week, we still have something for you. Let's jump into the Chris Harris Jr. film room.
Get that tape.
Okay, before we get into what the Bills did well, let's look at the one Broncos highlight from the playoff game last year in Buffalo.
Cover 4, run that seam right there, right down the middle with Franklin. And that's going to be there again, right? McDermott, he runs 4, he runs cover 3, he runs some man. That's going to be there all day. So just being able to take advantage of that speed, taking those guys up top. Buffalo will be ready for it this week. So we're going to have to you might have to kind of disguise it and, or bring it in later. But, they're going to be ready for us to definitely throw it down deep.
Pretty sure that was Ed Oliver right there. Welcoming Bo Nix to the playoffs on the throw. When that happened, and it was right towards where the press box kind of in the corner there at Stadium in Buffalo, it was like right at me. I was like, oh, this might be a different outcome, but it wasn't. And now let's get to our next clip, which is really a number of clips. The thing that's not bothering you, concerning you the most, is one of the highest paid running backs who I think led the league in rushing this year. But James Cook was doing this all day.
Right. The edges have to be good versus James Cook. He's a guy that can bounce outside, right? He's going to force our DBs to tackle. Riley Moss is going to have to be much improved run tackler, which he has been this season. Last year he used to kill me because the guys used to bounce all the time, but Riley Moss has improved on that. So we'll see how he does this week, but they're going to force Pat and Moss to tackle on those edges, and Cook does a good job of bouncing out there. So it's going to be – he's very tough, man. He's not very big as you would think as most powerful running backs, but he's elusive, and he has great vision.
Yeah, it's not just running the ball, too. They obviously had success. And we saw early in the year they were vulnerable on the edges throwing to the running back, but they have tightened that up. And so I think – in a lot of ways, one of the biggest keys is going to be Hufanga, and will he be disciplined and not just come down to make plays in the run, but will he be where he needs to be? And when a guy's an all-pro, second-team all-pro, it's hard to be critical or overly critical, but kind of similar to when you're talking about guys like Vaughn and Miles and Joey, they can sometimes, freelance a little, and because they're such freak athletes, they make plays, but it can also leave you vulnerable. And not only were they gashing on the run game, 200 yards rushing, Josh Allen at times was able to put on his cape, including this, which came after a controversial penalty or a penalty to extend the drive where the Broncos were going to get off the field. But then Josh Allen makes this play because it's 13-7. Broncos are in it. 3 minutes left in the third quarter. And then this is what Josh can do.
Oh man, that was a hell of a play, man. And that's what he's gonna do, man. He's gonna scramble. He's gonna be able to get out the pocket, right? The rush has to be able to continue to get there. D line right there, 4th-and-1. You would think they'd be coming a little bit more right there. So I think I need a little bit more, intensity from the D line to get to that guy a little bit. Way too much time, and if you give him 10 seconds like this, yeah, you're gonna get beat, man. He can make every throw, and guys have to be able to plaster and stay on their man. And when you play against this guy, you're going to be in some zero coverages, right? You got to be able to fight. The middle safety, I wish he would have stayed deep right there. Try to stay deep, especially if he scrambles, and don't bite up too fast. I think that was Jones right there.
Yeah,
right.
And we're seeing Jones and obviously PJ Locke. No Jones, but PJ and Hufanga. So PJ will have a chance to redeem himself. Obviously, part of it is, does Ty Johnson play? I know he was at last check listed as questionable. And we'll get to the injury report in a little bit. But there's going to be some shot at revenge, not just to play to Johnson there, but then let's also see as we get to the next play or the final play here. We think Curtis Samuel's coming off IR, as our guy Sal told us, a Bill sideline reporter. Well, this is not great.
See, that's not Samuel, the playoff effort. When you think of playoffs, and they know Broncos are going to run man because they don't fear those guys, right? So what do? They got their best man beaters for VJ. And right there, that's just not playoff effort, right? When you play in the playoffs, it's do or die. We got to have much better effort from everybody. If he does catch the ball, let's get him down fast. But, the level that you got to play with, the energy that Samuel's playing with is the way that you got to attack it in the playoffs. So hopefully we do totally different.
You're talking about man, and I'm curious, man versus zone, because when you play man, at times you're going to have your back turned to Josh Allen. Do you want to play a little more zone? The Broncos play a majority of man, or do you want to be half man, half zone? Because it's kind of pick your poison.
Yeah, you got to mix in both, right? You got to mix in both with Josh Allen, give him different looks, bring him some different pressures, and I think the Broncos can play man. So there is going to be times where they're going to have to lock up, right? I think Patrick Surtain could easily cover this. The guy just ran over the over route. Can Pat Surtain cover that? Yes. That was just a bad effort play right there, So I'm not really worried about them playing man and then bringing more pressure, because that's what we did to Cam Newton. We played some man, hug rush the linebackers and spy with the linebackers and be able to add on rushers to him. So do I think they can do the same thing with the Josh Allen? Yeah. Definitely, because he's a guy that likes to scramble also and wants to make plays down the field. So get on the body. Let's add rushers to him and kind of treat him like a Cam Newton or old Andrew Luck. That's how I would treat him.
All right. That was our weekly trip inside the Chris Harris Jr. film room. Okay, we're going to look at the Bills' numbers here. Before we do that, I want to thank our friends at Furniture Row for helping remodel our set. Need to get you some more Furniture Row furniture down there in Dallas. But
come on, I need come on, Denver mattress. I need some furniture over here.
Yeah, get you a new Denver mattress. Go to FurnitureRow.com. Of course, stop by a number of their Front Range locations. The one that's not too far from the stadium on the edge of downtown. Maybe on your way to the game, if you don't want to tailgate too hard, you stop by and think, oh, Broncos are going to win. I'm going to make my bet on the Broncos. Then I'm going to use that money to go buy a new couch at Furniture Row. So thanks to our friends at Furniture Row. When you talk about the Bills, you talk about Josh Allen and as an extension, James Cook. But so BJ was asked specifically about stopping number 17 and this Bills attack.
He's a special player, obviously. It's certain guys in this league that can take over games, and he's one of those guys. But we knew to win the championship here, it was going to go through Patrick and Lamar and Josh, and Joe Burrow. That's the AFC side, unfortunately. That's where we live. So we knew we got to face one of those guys eventually. So watching Pittsburgh and Baltimore last week, I was cheering for Pittsburgh because I knew that Lamar can wreck your dreams, and so can Josh. So that's part of it. If you're going to win the AFC side, it's going through those four guys, and it's our turn.
Yeah, he's right. I would have been going for Pittsburgh too, Yeah, definitely want to go against an Aaron Rodgers who's 42. Compared to the younger, faster quarterbacks that can make plays all over. So Josh Allen is just returning MVP, having that playoff experience. Nobody wants to play him, and so that just adds the greatest challenge to VJ, which I'm pretty sure he's ready for it. The defense, they should be going back and watching that game from last year. They should be sick, so they should be very highly motivated to have a great showing this weekend.
Josh Allen's playoff record, he's only got I think his first road win, or maybe his second road win, was the other day in Jacksonville. But his playoff numbers are bonkers. He's 66% passing, over 3,000 yards, 35 total touchdowns, 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions, no fumbles. Yeah, so when they've lost, and they obviously a lot of times it's been to the Chiefs, it hasn't been Josh Allen's fault. Josh Allen has not folded in the playoffs, has not caved in the playoffs. So the Broncos will have their hands full. But let's look at some of the numbers real quick at what the Bills do well against what the Broncos do well. And I appreciate that David has broken it down. Turnover margin, the Bills obviously theirs ends up a little bit better than the Broncos, just slightly better, but they're not taking the ball away maybe at the rate they work, because we know they don't turn it over very much. And then the time of possession, the Bills are best in the league, but the Broncos are right up there too. They can have these long sustained drives. So that feels like a wash to me. Do you see any advantage there?
No, I'd say it's a wash. Both pretty, haven't been able to turn the ball over all season, right? Not too many turnovers by Bo. Same thing with Josh Allen. He's been very smart with the football this season, but the time of possession is very crucial. That's because they're great on third down and they run the football. So those are two main things. Broncos gotta win those battles to be able to win this game.
All right, let's look at their offenses. So we know Green is top 10 in the league and Red is bottom 10. So the Broncos offense, I think people don't realize, and I know that some games can skew it a little, Green Bay, Dallas, whatever, but they're still middle of the pack or better. They're not bad at anything. And I think that's encouraging. But then we know, like you said, Bills, one of the best third down teams, one of the best red zone teams. And I think Josh Allen is a big, and those tight ends too, especially when you talk about passing in the red zone.
Right. And then right here, I'm looking at the points per game, right? 28 to, so you could say around 30 points. I think the Broncos are going to have to score this game. We're not going to be able to win a game this week with a low scoring game. I think Broncos win, it's going to be like a 34-28. It's going to have to be a tight game or a scoring game. You're going to have to put up points this week. So that's one thing that jumps out for me. Also, of course, the red zone. They're third in the red zone. Broncos defense is, I think, number 1, right?
They're second. They dropped the second, but they're first in red zone, second on third down.
Right. So, those are going to clash. 2 top 5 offense with the Bills and the red zone in on third down, and the Broncos top 5 and red zone on third down defense. So that's something that's going to clash. Whoever wins that battle, right, that can swing the game. And that's another key point that I'm looking at.
Would you like to see, if they're in man down in the red zone, maybe not on the 2-yard line, do you want to see Pat on a tight end, maybe on Kincaid, on Knox, as opposed to on one of those receivers, especially if you're in some kind of sub package?
Oh, he will be. When you play the Bills, you're going to guard everybody. That's one thing. They move those guys all the way around. Kincaid's been banged up this season, so I wouldn't want to waste a pad on him. I think some of our linebackers and safeties should be able to cover him, but they're going to be in zero. When you play against Josh Allen, a Cam Newton, these quarterbacks that can run the football, Jalen Hurts, you're going to be in a lot of times in zero coverage in the red zone, and you're going to have to just lock your man up anyway. So I definitely expect a lot of all-out blitzing and playing a lot of zero coverage in the red zone.
Let's look at those defensive numbers again, because again, the Broncos all green. The Bills yards per game, though, obviously where they're at their best, and then in passing yards, that's actually pretty impressive, because they have, when you score that many points, they've had plenty of leads in their 11 wins and maybe even in some of their losses, to still be first against the pass, especially when they're only 20th in sacks. That says that they're just solid pass defense, because teams have had to pass to try to catch up, which is also interesting. when you look how bad they are in terms of rush defense, because you figure teams aren't running the ball anyway because they're down. But these numbers are almost kind of misleading. And on third down, the Broncos can stay on the field at times because the Bills let you extend drives.
Right. The Bills are one thing, they're trash at stopping a run. Broncos got to take advantage of that. They got to be able to, rely on that and stay committed to it, right? Sean Payton can sometimes get out of it, of the game plan, stay committed to it. Their pass defense, I believe, is not because of their secondary. It's not like they're not on the same level as Houston or anything. I think it's just because, teams are able to run the football on them, right? You don't really have to throw too much on them when you can run the ball every time. So, so I wouldn't place that. I think that stat is kind of, bogus stat, them being the top secondary. I don't believe so. What'd you say?
Sorry. No, finish with your thought. I'm sorry.
It was showing the takeaways, and they're mediocre in the takeaways and having a poor rush defense. So I wouldn't give their secondary that high of praise. And then third down shows it also. So Broncos they got to take advantage of this defense, run the football, keep Bo on the field, do good on third down, right? And they got to exploit these guys, because this is not the same Bills defense as last year. They're not.
Yeah. It feels like if you were looking for a prop bet to make, Bo's rushing yards, because they usually set that number in the mid-20s. I feel like Bo's going to have north of 40 yards rushing. It's something in my gut tells me that. We don't spend a lot of time looking at special teams, but when I asked Darren Rizzi about what scares you, he talked about their return yards in terms of their kickoff return yards, and Ray Davis being such a weapon there. Let me ask you this philosophically, because with the kickoff rules changing, if you've got a lead late and that they're really good returning the ball and you've been okay in your kick coverage, but they also, if you kick it to the end zone, which you can easily do here in Denver, give Josh Allen the ball in 35 if they just need to get a field goal. Are you taking your chances against the kick returner, or taking your chances at Josh Allen from the 35? What would you do late in the game if you're the Broncos?
Yeah, I would try to tell Lutz, see if he can kind of sky kick it, kind of get our guys down there, try to pin them in the corner. So I would kick it to him. The Broncos, we got an all-pro on special teams, right?
Yeah.
So make a play.
26 in terms of yards against, because of a couple big runs, including against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we've struggled a little bit on the kickoff, and they definitely need to tighten that up. But, I think it's something that when you play, they're 17th, the Broncos are 26, and it's a 1 yard difference. Right, you know what I mean? Is it really that big of a deal on that? You see what I'm saying? So I would go with just kick it to the guy, right? And, you got to be able to cover in the playoffs, right? The intensity has to be up.
Well, even if you're playing just your average, you say, okay, I'd rather give them the ball at the 27 or 28 yard line versus the 35. Right. And it's going to take a couple seconds off the clock if time is an element. And then penalties too, but we know the Broncos have been better in terms of penalties. All right, before we get to our predictions, as we do every week too, and this is something certainly in the Broncos' favor, let's take a quick peek at the injury report. Yeah, your Bell and Pollock injury report, and I should here. I'm going to send this to David as we're talking. But your Bell and Pollock injury report for the Broncos, it's almost all good. You're not seeing Lucas Kroll, you're not seeing Drew Sanders yet, as he's been off IR. J.K. Dobbins is not opened his window yet, but he was on the side field running or doing a workout, so that's a good thing to see J.K. Dobbins out there. Garrett Bowles didn't even make the injury report with his ankle all week. P.J. Locke with his leg, and then JFM was with his hip, was full go all week, and it's all about Dre Greenlaw, who was full the final day of practice on Thursday. You got to feel good about the Broncos' health.
Broncos got great health coming into this game. They should feel very happy. Dobbins, I wish he could play, because this time is perfect for Dobbins, right? Playoff time, veteran. This is when we need him. So hopefully he's able to come back the next game. I don't know if he's going to be able to return this week, but Greenlaw, being able to have him, he's huge for the run stopping ability. And then, they love to use the tight ends and the running backs out in the passing game. So Greenlaw coming back is huge. Everybody being healthy for the Broncos going into the playoffs is amazing. So I'm excited, man. I just can't wait to get Dobbins back, because once we get back, once he gets back, he just turns up the offense a little bit more.
Yeah, and then on the other side of it, we'll look real quick see how fast David's hands are, because the Bills, it is a laundry list. I mean, 14 guys. There's more guys on it than off it. They obviously put their receivers. Out there on IR with Palmer last week, and then now Davis and Tyrell Shavers. 14 guys, including Harrison out, young corner out of Kentucky, who's a good player. Poyer's out. A bunch of guys questionable, but Ed Oliver we think is back. Samuel's back. Hamlin. But look at that list real quick. We're not going to dwell on it much longer. That is bonkers to see how many guys are on there. But
yeah.
Good news there if you're the Broncos. The one thing we know is that injuries pop up out of nowhere, and you always got to be prepared. Nobody I trust more than my friends at Bell and Pollock. Call them today, 303-795-5900 or championsofthepeople.com. All right, and as we end the show real quick, Chris, we'll do predictions, maybe working even a little bit backwards. Let's jump to the college football national championship, where at last check, the Hoosiers, I think, are a 7.5 point favorite, despite it being in Miami, where tickets are still north of 1,500. I saw your boy Kayvon had a couple tickets, sold those for about 1,500 a piece, I heard. So who wins the game, even though it's in the Orange Bowl, or rather in Hard Rock Stadium? Does Miami pull off the upset, or is it Indiana, a team of destiny?
I got to make some fast picks, but I'm going to go with Indiana right here. We're going Indiana.
All right. I'm with you too. I think the Hoosiers cap off the miracle season, and if they can do it, why can't our Jayhawks? But all right. We're both on the Hoosiers. Let's jump to the NFC first. Saturday, Niners at Seahawks. Sam Darnold got an oblique thing. Drew Lock, your old teammate, taking first team reps. I can't see Darnold not starting. If Drew Lock has to play, can the Seahawks still pull it out?
Dang, man, I'm going to have to change my pick off the injury, man. But I'm gonna still ride with Seattle. The 12, the home crowd, and the defense. I'm gonna ride with Seattle still.
Yeah, and does Fred Warner make a miraculous return too? That's a possibility. Which is crazy. Yeah. The other NFC game on Sunday, Bears hosting the Rams, going to be cold. I think minus 10 to minus 15 degrees wind chill. That's the later of the two games on Sunday late evening, or depends on time zone, 4:30 here in Denver. Do the Bears hold on at home, or have they been living on the edge like they did last week? And even though it's cold, Rams go in and take that win.
Yeah, I got the Rams going to win. The Bears should have been sent home last week. So I'm gonna rock with the Rams.
Yeah, Rams are 4.5 point favorites. Then we go Sunday early, first AFC game, but second in order. Texans traveling up to Foxborough, where weather's not gonna be that bad. It's gonna be in the 30s for the second straight week. Weather not a factor in Foxborough.
Definitely got to go with the Texans defense. Right, defense wins championship. Their defense is playing tight. Their secondary is tough. They're going to get to Drake Bay. They just got to stop Henderson in that run game, and it's going to be a problem for the Patriots.
Yeah, I guess I haven't actually given my picks, but I'm taking the Seahawks with you. I'm staying with you on the Rams as well. I'm going opposite here, mostly because I want the Patriots fans, as much as I don't want to see them in the AFC title game, I want to see them come here and have the Broncos kick their teeth in a little bit and show them that they're not exactly where Tom Brady and the Patriots were just yet. But if you're in the AFC title game, you're going to be feeling better. They're 2.5 point favorites. So I say the Patriots win, won't be surprised at all. But if the Texans play offense like they did for 3 quarters, they will not win that game if they do what they did in Pittsburgh, because that's pretty gross. CJ Stroud was trying to lose it. And then, of course, final game, I think both of us are on the Broncos, where the Broncos have gone from being an underdog to now being a 1 to 1.5 point favorite. You said if they win, it's 34-28. Is that what you're sticking with?
Yeah, they got to put up 30 versus Josh Allen. I think last year in the playoffs, Bills put up 30 on it. So I think it's gonna take one of those type of games to be able to knock these guys out.
I think it's lower, and I think this game, for as big as it is for Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, could be huge for your old head coach Vance Joseph, to remind everyone, even though all these other interviews are going on, if they can shut Josh Allen down and lock up that run defense, that that'll be the best interview he could have. Like Sean Payton said about Aaron Glenn last year. I think they win it 23-20, 2017. I think it's lower scoring than you think. But we're both on the Broncos, which means they will be hopefully hosting the AFC title game a week from Sunday. Chris, this has been a blast as it always is. I know you got to run, and then we've got a game to watch. Tomorrow we'll have you covered all day long, pregame, through the game, and of course postgame right here with Chad and Kristen Brown and myself. Chris, it's been a pleasure. We will catch you next week on Football Fridays.